It's 3 o'clock.
Daniel?
He's got to finish his sentence.
Almost done.
For whom the bell tolls.
It says here, please silence your cell phones. Invocation and pledge. Who would like to do the invocation tonight, this afternoon? Dan will. So we'll stand.
Father God, we want to thank you for this day. We ask that you give us your wisdom and your strength as we conduct the district's business. And let it all be for your glory, Lord, and in your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And our manager will do as usual.
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Jordana.
Here.
Director Ann Rose.
Here.
Director Mark Soler.
Here.
Vice President Cliff Jacobson.
Here.
President Bill Kellogg.
Present. Public participation. Individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not scheduled on the agenda, although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, with comments limited to 5 minutes per agenda item. Does anybody have any public comment for something that is not on the agenda? We're going to move to closed session, conference with labor negotiations, Government Code Section 54957.6, and its employee organization IVW and PID. Emily is going to help us. We'll be back as soon as we can. There's no guarantee.
Kevin, I think you were tasked with operating the slide.
So, she'll operate it for me.
Okay, thanks.
We had a very lively discussion about labor negotiations tonight, and we've given instructions to our, where'd you go? Emily, to meet with IBEW and talk about what we talked about in closed session, which is, this is all we're going to tell you by law. So, see, Emily's going to be the one talking to the union. We gave her the directions, right?
Yep.
That's why she's making a face as she's going.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you. I'm going to read public participation again, because a lot of you weren't here when I read it the first time. Individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not scheduled on the agenda, although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, with comments limited to 5 minutes per agenda item. So at this time, if anybody has comments on things that are not on the agenda, we can listen to you. If not, we'll go on with the agenda. Yes, Mark? Has to be what's not on the agenda.
Thank you, Board. I thought you were going to ask for comments before you went to private. I didn't hear you say that. I heard
You did.
Not on
I
the
heard him
agenda.
say what's not on the agenda, and closed session was on the agenda. So I took that to mean that it was going to be on the agenda.
Oh.
So maybe I just took it wrong.
No, you did it right.
But I just like to remind the board that as the saying that I like to think about is think about your gardener. You hire your gardener. He brings his own lawnmower. He replaces the dead plants. He fixes your drip system when it's broke, all in that one monthly bill that you get. And I say to you, at what point do you quit giving him a raise because he's a good worker? At what point do you say to him, John, you've been or Judy, you say, John or Judy, you've been one hell of a good gardener, but you know, this house only merits paying you $500 a month to do the yard work. And I'm sorry, if you need to make more than $500 a month, you need to go somewhere else. And I'd just like for the board to remember that as they as they go into these negotiations for labor, because I find that when if a tree falls on your house and the insurance company says, I'll send out the carpenter to fix it and stuff, none of you worry about it. I don't worry about it. I don't care. The house is made new. I'm happy. The paint's on it. My big thing is, does my wife like the paint? But if the insurance company says, that tree fell on your house and I'm going to give you $50,000, you can bet everything that you're worth, and I'm going to ask that contractor how much he's worth, and Dan will testify to that. That's the way it is. And so I wish that the board would remember that you're dealing with my money, not your money. And I want you to treat it like it is your money instead of my money, because what happens is when you guys negotiate, you negotiate like it doesn't come out of your pocket just by default, because it doesn't come out of your pocket. So the thing is, I'd like everybody to be reminded during these labor negotiations that it does come out of the ratepayers. And while I'm on that, forget about selling more water. Start thinking about cutting back. The people that let their yards die are not going to pay $10,000 to put in grass again so they can buy water from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Is anybody, you could slipped in, you had your piece to say after we were through with it. I guess that's okay. Anybody else have comments for anything that is not on the agenda at this time? Okay, here's what we're going to do. This just goes on very rarely here. It's been 10 years since we've done something like this, and there's none of us that have been on the board when it went the last time. District Manager Recruitment Workshop. Workshop conducted by Richard O'Donnell and with Koff and Associates regarding the candidate recruitment process for the district manager position. Action may be taken. It's yours.
I can introduce. Again, the board, if you remember, they hired Koff and Associates to do district manager recruitment. Richard O'Donnell, I've been working with him for about a month, it seems like, to get the contract finally squared away and then to set up this meeting itself. He did send out some prerequisites to the board members. I hope all the board members received it and looked through it and maybe hopefully did a little bit of homework. This will make this thing go a little faster. As you all know, I'll be leaving here in a minute, and so hopefully be candid with him, and we can kind of work through this. They can set the timeline. There's timeline issues that you guys are going to look at too, about how long it's out there and different things like that. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Richard.
Okay, great. So, essentially what we're looking to do here today is develop the ideal candidate profile for what we'll be looking for in the district manager. We'll use that information to both publish the ad, so the rhetoric that goes into the ad, we'll use the wording from today to incorporate into that. And we'll also use the information to actively seek candidates, and when we're screening them, we'll keep that knowledge in mind so that the people who do get through our initial screening will be accurate. And down the road, it can kind of help us sort of prepare the candidates, as they're preparing for on-sites and things like that. So we'll get started. Actually, on our way up here, we decided we were going to start with the last question first and then jump into the rest of them. So I'm going to start with the last one.
I have a question before we start.
Oh, yeah.
What is your name again? I'm not.
My name is Richard.
O'Donnell?
O'Donnell.
Did you spell that for me?
Sure, it's
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
okay. And this is Georg, who's our CEO. It's the German spelling of George, which is Georg.
Sorry.
No, yeah.
Okay.
So the last question that we had.
So I'm pleased to see you here today, and I didn't see your name on our original proposal that you even worked there that I could see, so I was surprised. But I'm glad you're here. And also I wanted to know if we could use this information too to come up with maybe a more updated job description.
Absolutely. So that's exactly, this information will definitely go into the job description and the brochure that we produce. It's very valuable for that.
Thank you.
So the first or last question, now the first question we have is just kind of open-ended. What is the experience and background that would constitute an ideal candidate for this position? Yeah, we could even.
You want our input? Is that what?
Why don't we go one by one?
Okay.
Start with.
Start with Dan.
Okay.
As president of the board, at least I can get out of being first.
No, don't start with me. You always start with me. Start with somebody
I
else.
think Ann's prepared there. Would you want Ann to start then?
Sure. You've done the homework. I haven't.
For me, it's important to have someone that does have an engineering degree and preferably is licensed. That's preferable on my list. Also, experience in water, that would be a strong, I'd have strong support for, almost a necessity, but I don't know, there's some wiggle room there. And a strong management background. Experience in public and intergovernmental relations. So if they had, that would be a plus. If they didn't come from a private company but came from a more governmental city or district setting, but not a necessity, but I could see that would be a plus. And someone who's really technically savvy is all, because I'm not. And so someone that knows, when we say LinkedIn, we know what that means. And, someone who is certainly good with software that is used in water and finance and what have you, and just knows their way around a computer and communications.
Great.
Well,
Mark or Dan, or we'll jump around. Looks like Cliff wants to.
I'll go.
Okay, Cliff.
I'll go. I think the individual should have knowledge of accounting, knowledge of water districts, knowledge of management. Basically, I'm going to be the odd duck here. If you take Kevin Phillips' resume, you're going to find a guy that I think is going to fit all these requirements for this question you have here, because he's got accounting knowledge, he's got water treatment knowledge, he's got experience in the saddle. He's doing a tremendous job now, and he already knows the game. So I would be looking for somebody that could fill his shoes that he's already filled with George's shoes, and doing a pretty darn good job. And I would be surprised if you found somebody that could hit the ground running as well and as quickly as he has.
Okay.
Mark or Dan?
Dan, you want to go?
I'm still
Okay.
working on it.
Well, I agree with both of you. Actually, it's just going to add on top of it. But I'd like to have a dynamic person, someone that's, very forward-thinking, inclusive, team-oriented, brings people together. Like Ann said, a really good communicator, someone that can handle the press and also the public to actually relate to the community. I want someone that can relate to what's going on in this community. Hopefully they become part of the community. That would be great. They don't necessarily have to come from the water side or be an engineer, but they definitely have to be experienced with handling government agencies and regulations, because we're under a lot of regulations and more are coming down the pipe all the time. So someone that's got experience in those kinds of things. So, and just a good fit for our district. Someone that can walk out of their office and go over here to the yard and talk to the folks, the employees. I want somebody that's not too stuffy, that they're sitting in their ivory tower. I don't want that. Got to have somebody that can relate. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. I don't think we need an engineer. They like to build things and spend money on concrete and stuff. We need somebody that can work well with the public and with the rest of the officers. We have, the way the district is organized, we have field staff with 2 field people there that have the expertise on laying pipe and doing that. We have a water treatment plant with 2 men in charge that runs the water treatment plant and makes sure we're within the regulations. So to me, the manager has to be familiar with these things, but he doesn't have to be an expert, because we have an expert staff that's well-trained and sent him off to training things all the time. Yeah, on some of these things, it says oversees preparation of the annual budget, making recommendations to the board on final expenditures level, Recently, we've changed that. Kevin holds 2 jobs right now. He's Chief Financial Officer and Manager. And actually, we want those split, but we want them to work as a team on getting the budget together. And so they'll both report to the board and have separate contracts. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure was in here. The physical activities and all that, I think almost anybody in decent health can do that. As far as having other things, it says in here, prepare and administer a district budgeting fiscal control process. I would like to again put that it's done with the chief financial officer. They both have separate contracts and they report to the board. So it's key that we have a little bit of a break, maybe, from the chief financial officer on the manager and vice versa on the financing, on how they report it to the board. I think they do need extensive work experience in management or administrative position, private or public agency. Background should include responsibility for formulation and implementation of programs, budgets, and administration operations. And I think the graduation from an accredited college or university with major work in appropriate field. I wouldn't put it down to business administration, personnel, or engineering. I think by the time somebody's had 5, 6 years of experience in the water business, which is where I think experience should come from, and he has a college degree to show that he was able to do that work and get the degree. But my own experience coming out of college, I was trained one way, and I'm still serving the same industry, but I do a great deal of different things than I ever learned in college. And over on your sheets, I wrote down some things. Experiences other district, another type of organization, and say other water district. It doesn't mean they have to have a district. So this is called a urban district here, where we're surrounded with mostly ag districts in the valley. And I think an ag experience in an ag district with some household water would be fine. Again, he'll be backed up by the men and women are already here on staff that can help whoever the new manager is on that. And I'm looking at somebody that's mostly an administrator and works well with other people, including the board, of course, because he'll be responsible to the board and hired by the board. I think what Mark said, applicable federal and local regulatory ordinances and procedures, I think somebody's experience in water districts will have an understanding. They may not have all the rules that we have to live with here, but they'll have a good knowledge of water laws. And this is a key one here. Principles and practices of public administrative analysis, fiscal planning and control, and policy and program development. Working with the board on this. Not having it be the manager's thing over here. Have him or her work with the board as a general thing. So the board's informed and help him make decisions or her make decisions for the future. The board has the principal financial responsibility as a special district. We're the ones that the district fails for any reason financially, we're removed. The manager might actually survive for a short time and he can go off and find another job. But we would have the disgrace and everything that goes with it in our local community. This is not a very large community, and we certainly don't want that kind of badge stuck to us. So we need somebody who will work well with the board to make sure we keep financial solvency. I've got other things in here, but I've probably said enough. And Dan, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Beyond many of the very good things, I personally would like to see somebody who would not be a micromanager. I'm not sure that that's the best for this district. Also, in having looked at multiple operations of and worked with other local agencies and so on, I think we could use somebody who might possibly been in a position to have been an efficiency expert. I don't feel that our district has inefficiencies or necessarily any extreme inefficiencies, but I think any operation we would like to have somebody who is able to step back, look at it, and let me see, study the operation and make it run to maximum efficiency, because there are always areas. I can step into almost any operation, look at other people at church organizations, town hall, everything that I've been involved with, and watched people and said, why is that being done twice? You know, it just, and so just study and see how we can make the wonderful employees that we have be maximum efficient. So some people are good at that and some people aren't.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Anything else on this topic before we move on to the next question?
Is the next questions about how much we pay?
There is a question in here about that. Let's start from the first one, though. All right. So, first question we had intended to ask is, what are the district's strengths?
Going back to your first slide, I think Director Kellogg did address the fact that this person doesn't prepare a budget. They oversee the preparation of a budget and then presents it to the board.
Okay. Yeah, so we have to make sure that we get that correct. So next question. What are the district's strengths? How can the new district manager build on those strengths?
Our strengths are in our employees and their desire to do a good job, assist the community in providing great drinking water. So it's, to me, that's our greatest strength is our employees. So.
And I would piggyback on that. We are known for our customer service. And then in addition, we are fortunate in that we are independent. We're a non-for-profit district. We own the rights to the source. We own the treatment process. We own the distribution and the labor that maintains it. So we don't have to go, other than for big projects, we have to go outside, but we are pretty self-contained, and that's a benefit. And we aren't answering to shareholders, but we have our stakeholders, the people of Paradise, but we're not having to worry about making a dividend or, in that respect, we're fortunate. And then all we do is water, and we're very transparent about it. And professional staff and I think Paradise Lake is something that we have the water rights to our own lake, and Paradise is kind of like a little jewel here on the ridge, and not only is it the source of drinking water, but it's also used for recreation purposes, and that's another way that we're fortunate. So those are strengths.
Actually, we haven't perfected our water rights yet, so we
We're
don't.
expanding them, yeah.
Yeah. So we don't actually have that, and that's one of the things that a district manager can do that we're working towards is perfecting our water rights so that the state can't tell us how much water to give to Southern California and how much we can drink. So that's an area that we can build on that we're currently in flux on. The district, as Ann said, we have, and as Mark said, we have a really hardworking, dedicated crew of people that take their job seriously. And to me, it's important that the manager embrace that quality feeling and help the employees to continue to feel that way, because any employee who feels good about where he works and is proud of the job that he's doing is going to telegraph that to the customers. And anybody who's not happy, whether it be from his job or from a manager that doesn't understand his constraints and doesn't give him the freedom to do his job correctly and not micromanage, that's going to have an impact on the quality of what we have to offer. So that's important.
For me, I agree pretty much. I think it's very important. We have people, I call them the owners of the district, are our long-term employees that have done a good job over the years, and they're the ones that make everything work, that they really are, for the most part, conscientious, work hard, some without asking, work extra hours to make sure the job's done right. I think that is our great strength, and we would like to have a manager that would complement that.
Okay. Any last comments before we move on to the next question?
No?
Okay. How can the new district manager handle current and future challenges?
Our reserves have been somewhat depleted going through the drought. So right now, financially, those reserves need to be built back up. And this kind of goes to what Dan was saying before. We have to do more with less. We need to learn how to streamline where we can, merge, cut costs, increase our efficiency. That's going to be a challenge. We have possible new conservation regulations whereby the state may restrict the use of our customers through gallons per day, and that will decrease our revenue. That's another challenge. We just got a letter from the state, from DWR, that is going to require us to inspect our dams and spillways in lieu of what happened in Orville, and to have a correction plan in place by the end of the year. So that's open-ended. We don't know how many millions of dollars that may cost. We know the first phase of the inspection was $50,000. And we're also... This calendar year, they want a work plan in place. And we also have an NPDES permit that we're trying to renew. And that may require, well, certainly going to require some money for rehabbing our ponds and maybe adding a new treatment train so that we don't violate for aluminum or DCBM. So those are all challenges. And then I would add on top of that, during the last year or so, we went through the 218 process to raise rates. This created a big disconnect between the public and this board and PID staff. And we really need that mended. We need, the trust was broken somehow, communication was disconnected. That needs to be reconnected and that trust earned again, which is going to be probably the biggest challenge of getting the communication out to the public so that they're on board with the board's direction and what we need to do.
Sure.
So that says to me that the district manager should be open and embrace communication with the employees, the board, and the general public. So he's got to be able to have the ability to be open, to think outside the box. We only have a limited number of customers. And right now, we've thanked them for using less water by raising their rates. And obviously that is statewide. But we still have expenses that have to be met. And as Ann said, we've got a lot of upcoming challenges in the way of projects that we don't know where we're going to get the funding for them, but we know that we're going to have to find it somewhere. So a new district manager has got to be able to come up with ways of funding those without taxing our current customers. We've got to figure out a way to, contrary to what the rest of the state says, use more water responsibly, but use more water, because that's the lifeblood of this organization. And if we're going to survive, and we're going to give people good quality water, we've got to have the infrastructure to keep it good quality water. And we can't do that on a dwindling budget and at the same time meet all the regulations that are coming down on us. So again, we have to think outside the box. We have to come up with revenue sources that we currently don't have to maintain this organization.
Okay.
I think the same thing Cliff is saying. We need a new manager that has helped raise money for his district for large projects, raising grant money from the state. We need a manager who has gone through some challenges. In other words, he hasn't had easy sailing where he is or other things, and you can see how he or she handled those situations. And I think those are two, speaking to the character of the man or woman, we need really well here. We can't, we really need those attributes well. In other words, they've been tested in the fire. They've also gone out and raised money for their district they're with now. And so they have both those experience together. And they have some financial ability to raise money, experience in doing that. And maybe even some private business they've been involved with. Like Cliff and I, we have to meet payrolls and other things. But those are, because the challenges are really going to be great for whoever comes aboard. And we don't know how big or how small, because we're waiting on the state to decide on those different things.
I'm a man of fewer words. I put down 3 words because in my list it says, how should the new district manager handle? And I said, with intelligence, grace, and open communication.
Okay. Fair enough.
Could I ask real quick what some of the major projects are that the district has upcoming that we could maybe throw into the job posting or give the person a sense as to okay, what's upcoming?
They've been listed to you one at a time, but yeah, name all 3 or 4 of them, whoever wants.
Give it to you.
We're in the process of expanding water storage by building 2 new,
E-reservoir.
were they 2.6 million gallon tanks? And fixing a pressure zone problem that's associated with that site. The NPDS permit I mentioned before, and rehabbing the ponds. Securing water rights, I think Cliff mentioned. And then, of course, the spillway, which we mentioned.
Those are the biggies.
Well, we also need to look at the roadway and the Magalia Dam and that infrastructure, because if that were not an earthen dam, we could raise the water level back up. And if we could raise the water level back up, we could improve the flow to the water treatment plant and have the system running the way it used to be before we had to pump water uphill.
That's not a mandatory item now, but that's a desired goal.
Yeah.
The other problem we have is we have a lot of old pipe in the district, and it needs to be replaced. And that to me is the most important thing, because some of the pipe goes back to the Second World War surplus pipe steel.
I think we have 59 miles of pipe.
Yeah, we have about 120 miles total, and we're about half through. We've got about 60 miles left.
Replace.
Pipe replacement,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. How can the new district manager maximize the current opportunities?
And that's what we all want to know.
That's what we're hiring them for.
Well, so it kind of goes back to Cliff's earlier comment about being creative with revenue streams.
And also, we have different possible opportunities on the table. There might be something with DeSable Reservoir and power generation that we may be able to tie into or take advantage of. But we really need someone to think outside the box, that has that experience with revenue streams. We've talked about even at Chico Intertie where we would sell treated water to Chico, but again, we cannot, with our current permit, we don't have the right to do that, to sell outside the district. The Town of Paradise right now is looking at approving sewers, and if they do, that will encourage large water users into the city. Right now, there's no sewers, so we don't really have production type businesses that are high-end users of water because there's no sewers.
That's kind of off the plate right for a while
Yeah.
at least. But
And then thirdly, or however many I am now, 1, 2, 3, 4.
we're not counting.
We're not counting. We have quite a bit of entitlement as far as water, and we didn't during the drought. We were fine. So maybe looking at a way to sell raw water rights or our raw water somewhere around the table so that we can make some money off of it. Just thinking outside the box.
Getting creative, yep.
Yeah, I think the new district manager has an opportunity to mend, I think someone else mentioned it, mend some of the, I think you did, Ann.
New lines of
Actually,
communication.
there's a lot of things going on the last few years here in the district, in the ratepayers. So I think this new district manager has a real opportunity to mend some fences here, bring the community back together, employees, board members, community. This is a great district. It really is a great district, and fantastic people in the district, great community. So sometimes we just don't see eye to eye, or we have different opinions. But I think this is a really good opportunity for someone to step in from possibly outside the area, or maybe someone that's already here, to actually kind of help bring us all back together as a community, and see that we're all in this together. Everybody's in this together.
I think it's doing pretty good already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You aware of our recent changes here?
We had a surface level explanation from Kevin.
Well, the district manager should have the ability to maximize his or her connections with the other agencies that we work around. Cal Water's one, and as Ann mentioned earlier, there were opportunities during the drought to run a trunk line down to Chico and sell excess water to Cal Water, and we would be banking it so that if we had issues, they'd have to pump it back up to us. But it would give us a conduit that we didn't already have, and they were, at that one point in time, it looked like they might be willing to fund that project. So I don't know if that opportunity's passed or not, but those are the types of things that a district manager should be aware of and be able to look at and bring all that information to us board members so that we can make intelligent decisions on whether or not it's a good idea. And in order for them to do that, they have to have a working knowledge of everything around us. That's personally why myself, I think it's going to be difficult for somebody coming from outside to come up to speed very quickly and learn all of the associations that we currently have around here to work with. But I think that that's critically important to the success of this organization.
Okay. It sounds to me like being creative with revenue streams is very important for you guys at this moment in time. It sounds like there's a pressing need for a bridge to the community. So these are some opportunities for this district manager coming in.
I think trust is an issue. I think we want somebody we can trust. How about that? That's a trait
The
we would
next
like
question.
to see.
Yeah.
Okay, move on to the next one here. It's kind of elaborate on what we were just discussing. So, what is the type of relationship the board is expecting to have with this district manager? How should he present or communicate with the board? And also, what would be the ideal persona for this person to have in interfacing with his or her staff?
I think open and above board. In the past, we've seen snide remarks, backroom deals, politics played. None of that. We'd like a two-way communication. We'd like trust both ways. We want to be included. Show us the vision and get us in consensus to go there. We want the same thing, or we should have the same goals, which is what is best for the district and the people of Paradise. As far as staff, recognize them as an asset, no micromanaging, no favoritism, and lead by example. Have an open relationship and accept their input.
I think I want to add to what Ann's saying. I would like to have a district manager that I, as a board member, can sit down with and discuss issues of concern. And I would like to feel that if that manager had questions about something in his district that he felt that a specific board member might have knowledge of, that he would reach out to that board member and have that kind of communication going both ways. I'd also like to see that same kind of communication between the manager and his staff and workers, so that we don't have board members trying to interact with staff when they should be going to the district manager, but because they don't trust his knowledge or experience, they feel that they have to go micromanage themselves. And I think that's a spiral downhill that has to stop. The only way we can do that is to have a good manager that we can both trust and work with.
Hopefully it's a personable person as well. I mean, good traits that you can. Things get a little dry up here sometimes, but it's kind of nice if we can have somebody that has a little levity in their nature. But, anyway, can relate to people. How about
that? Okay. So how can the new district manager best fit into the current culture within the organization and work environment?
I think in the next 5 years, we're going to have quite a few long-term employees maybe looking at retirement. So we're going to have that blend of the new coming in and the older ones possibly retiring. So we want someone that would be able to attract qualified staff to the district.
I think this question also addresses intangibles, like the qualities that you can't necessarily write into the job description.
Well, you don't want somebody from the big city coming up here who has unlimited resources and expectations, because we don't have unlimited resources, and we have aging infrastructure, and this is a bedroom community, basically. Not a lot of industry here. And we would want somebody who can fit into that culture and feel like they're at home. Somebody that we can relate to, somebody that's one of us.
I certainly would not say we don't want somebody from the big city, because you might have extremely qualified people from the big city that want to get out and would prefer living here and adopting the culture of here rather than where they came from. So I wouldn't adios them just because they're from the city. But we want people of character for sure, good character.
Yeah, I'd like to see somebody that's done a little homework when we do get maybe to the interview part or something. And one of my questions would be, okay, tell me a little bit about this community. What do you know about us? I mean, to me, I've been on interview panels before where people don't have a clue. They're just coming up just for the sake of the interview and to further their own, career, I guess you might say. But I like to see somebody that actually has done some homework, and like I think you were saying, Cliff, that they know the area, they know what our problems are. I mean, I really like to see somebody that's done some homework and is really interested. That to me, that shows interest. So
Not to put you on the spot here, but what would be some good answers in response to that question? Why should this person want to be here?
right.
Someone that's been raised in this area, possibly serves on like the Butte Community College Board, has experience with that, working with large groups. So some of those kind of attributes along with the character to go with it.
Okay. So what type of leader should this person be, both in terms of what the board is looking for and also what would serve best with the staff?
Seems like we've kind of covered that, but
Yeah, but lead by
Here's what we've
example.
done.
Lead by example is one thing. Don't don't say one thing and do another. Don't
Good character covers that
don't
one.
show people examples that don't exemplify who you really are. I mean, be genuine, be honest. When you make a mistake, admit that you made a mistake, and then do your best to correct it. Be real. I want somebody who I can communicate with, who can admit when they've made a mistake, and who you can work with to fix that. And if they can convey that to us, and they can convey that to the employees that have to work under him or her, then I think that solves a big problem right there. It's a good starting point.
Yeah, and I think we touched on these before, just being open and honest. Give it to us straight. We're all adults. If we, don't, tell us the situation. Make recommendations, sure, but, just don't try to manipulate us. And we should have the district's interest in mind, not a personal agenda that we get presented with. Share the vision. We certainly want to, I don't want to be manipulated, but I want to work alongside for the goal, for the good of the district. And then open communication with staff, where we've seen micromanagement before and almost a dictatorship. We want more input from staff because they know what they're doing. They're professional. We have a lot of money invested in them. And just set goals, vision, objectives that we can all agree on and pursue, so we're all going in the same direction.
Sure. It really sounds like this group is looking for someone who's very shoulder to shoulder, who has that humane side, as opposed to someone who's more sort of high-powered corporate, managing from like a third-party perspective.
Yeah, in this community, you pretty much need somebody that's down to earth. You're not going to highfalutin, unable to communicate and be honest. Not going to work. Not going to
I
work.
think we need somebody who wants to be here, not for the money, not for the position, but they want to be here because they truly feel like they can do a good job and feel proud of what they've done at the end of the day and look forward to coming to work the next day. So that's, if you're only coming here because, as Dan said earlier, now you're ready to retire and this seems like a good place to make a stipend and retire, that's not the person we want.
No.
We want somebody who genuinely wants to be here and wants to do a good job and respects where he's at and what we have to offer.
If they do their, I'm sorry, thought you were done.
That's okay.
Yeah. If they do their homework, they're going to see that this is a terrific community to live in. A lot of us, I can speak for virtually every friend that I have that has lived here and moved here. We didn't move here to get rich. We moved here because of the environment, the hiking, backpacking, boating, great schools, on and on. That's what drew us here. I promise you I didn't get here because I was going to get rich, and I have achieved that goal of not being rich. So.
You're rich in character.
Yeah, that's it.
And it is a slower pace of life.
It is.
Here, it's a small town. Even though 26,000, it feels like a small town. It's a small community. You feel the difference.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, that is riches too. So.
Yep.
And there's no traffic.
And that's right. I am wealthy. I wouldn't change places with somebody that
Reminding you
lived
there,
in the big city for anything in this world.
Yeah, I like them to be open too. Be open to new ideas. Yeah. We want someone to be not. And you said that no agenda. We don't want anybody that forms an agenda after they get here to either. We want them to be, open to and be flexible. They got to be flexible if things change.
Yeah, flexibility is a
Flexibility.
good point.
Mm-hmm.
And to move forward. We want to move forward. That's, I think we've all emphasized this. We just want to keep moving forward as a district. So,
One thing I'd like to add, and that is that I want a leader who, when we give him direction and he has a clear understanding of what we want and need, that he goes after that and does it, doesn't waller. I want somebody who can take the lead and run with it and accomplish what we ask them to do in a timely manner.
Okay.
And you got 3 weeks to find that person.
Might be a little tight.
Yeah, we want to go right now.
This is the perfect person, right?
Here's the big question. So what do you guys feel is a fair salary for this position? And actually, I don't know if we have gathered the previous person's salary as of yet. So I don't know if that's open.
Let's throw that back at you, just for grins. You've placed positions similar to this in the past for water districts. What's the average salary?
So we work with water districts quite often. We've placed several district managers throughout the state of California. So we do have data, and we can go back and research and make recommendations. I would feel uncomfortable just throwing out a number right now because I haven't. We looked at it briefly, but we didn't.
Yeah, the cross cut of agencies we've worked with is probably not necessarily representative of exactly your agency. So we would probably want to go back and research that a little bit more. I mean, we would do a lot of compensation work actually, also as one of our sides of the business, and so we could certainly get into that a little bit if you were looking for an actual market data.
Well, we're
we
obviously going to ask you, you guys are the professional headhunters, what's the...
We can provide like a pretty scientific or honest.
I mean, what's the high and what's the low for a district manager in a water district in the state of California? What have you seen?
I don't
We
think.
don't have to do this right
Negotiable,
now,
yeah.
right? Or
Yeah, I don't
looking
think-
for a number right now.
Yeah,
No.
we're not.
Not necessarily. It was suggested to us that we throw it out to the board. We can determine it ourselves and make a suggestion for sure.
I
I would like to not exceed what we're paying our present interim manager. So that's a good place to start in my thinking. But
We can certainly come back with a concrete recommendation and a.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you know what our district manager, our interim district manager is currently making?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel that particular salary would bring people flocking to our door wanting that job?
Well,
What's the number? I'm sorry,
147?
Sorry,
147?
147.
I think that
it was less than that. But that's
you're
a
not
total
necessarily
package.
looking for people
yeah.
to come
No,
flocking
it's just the salary.
to your district based on the salary. You want someone who's here for other reasons outside the salary.
I understand that, but how many people would be interested in that salary from your experience? Would we have a whole flock of people, or would there be very few people interested in that?
I think it would be very targeted. You wouldn't have like an abundance of candidates coming in at that salary range, but I think it's doable. But again, salary isn't everything. There's other selling points to this district. There's other reasons that people would move here.
That was my point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Most of
I'd like to have
We
it,
work with agencies that are in sort of geographically unique situations, if you will, and we do find that people often, people are, there's a little compensation, of course, they want to make a living, right? But it often is, a much bigger decision, that has to do with cost of living also, but quality of life. What's the kind of life that I want to have? Why am I making that decision at this point in my life and career? And, so there's a lot of human aspects and personal aspects that go along with those kinds of decisions, is what we usually find.
I think I'd like to have it as negotiable on the recruitment, not to spell out a
That's certainly a possibility.
Yeah,
We have a
that's good idea.
situation here.
I like that.
I'm familiar with ag districts in the valley, and most of the salaries are around $100,000 a year. They don't have as big a crew as we have here, for the most part, but that's it. So something like $125,000 might be enough for somebody to move from one of those districts. But depending on who will contact you and apply for the job. So.
Problem I have with that, Bill, respectfully, is that ag districts don't know very much at all about drinking water. They know about water for rice fields and irrigation, but potable water and a potable water treatment plant and distribution systems other than open levees for conveying large volumes of low-quality water is a completely different animal. And I think that we wouldn't, myself personally, I wouldn't be interested in somebody who only had agricultural water experience. I think there's a lot more to it than that.
I have a question about the open negotiable. Have you seen in your past experience that, how does that play out if you have?
Well, I think it's better that we have a cap because it kind of gives us a better filtration system when we're talking to candidates up front. Also, like if you're looking at, say, like $250,000 salary or something like that, which is not something I'm recommending, but just hypothetically, then it opens the door to people applying from like Chicago or Los Angeles or New York. And you're just going to get types that don't fit what the district is looking for. So it's better to have not a salary that attracts the most abundant candidate, but the accurate candidate, right? It's better fiscally.
Okay.
And you're going to get candidates who are coming here not only for the money, but because they see it as a place they want to live and a good career choice and other factors. So you never want to, as tempting as it is, have a salary that's inaccurate or that's paying for the person.
We couldn't really do $100,000 because our CFO makes at least $115,000, and this person
I
would
just said that's what
manage
they're
over that.
at. I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's where to put the salary in. I'm just
Okay.
saying that's where people are at in some of these smaller districts or large ag districts. They have a lot of land, but they don't have many people working there. But that's where their salaries top out.
I would say-
Farmers
But
are
we
not
talked about
known for
doing-
having open wallets.
Okay.
At the very least, based on the organizational structure, you probably want the district manager to be comparable to where Kevin is at.
Oh, yeah, at the very least. But, yeah. We were talking about maybe doing a salary survey among districts our size, and maybe we could come up with a firmer number later on in the process for a cap. Do we have to come up
We can
with
come
one
back with a
today?
recommendation before we kick all of this off, which
Okay.
is probably a good idea.
Maybe both of us can work and see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Would you show us who you looked at? Would that be information?
Yeah, we can provide that to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can give you kind of a list, or we could even work with you to establish a list of agencies that you want to look at, and we could reach out to them and gather
Yeah.
the data. I would probably recommend just looking at base, even though we know that that's not the whole package. But if we were to get into more detail than that, it would probably take a little more time than you might want.
I'd
But
like
base
to.
salary should be easy to obtain. So.
Yeah, I'd like to open it to the audience because I know there's a couple of people here that want to speak specifically to this. I don't know what they have to say, but they had asked ahead of time to be able to speak to this.
Bob Dickinson. As far as the bullet points here that you brought today in questions, it finally came out eventually here. The most important thing we need in a manager is an honest manager, someone that's critically honest, and trust will come with you folks learning with him as you go. You got to find somebody that's honest, with intestinal fortitude, that can take on. I think there's my point of view is because of the amount of money you're taking in, because of the amount of water that's not being used, we've got some serious look ahead of us that we're going to have to make some alterations. And sometimes that comes down to reductions in the people, reductions in the administration, in supervision. And my point of view is we have a lower number of people in the field servicing the community and way more people in administration. And somebody can come in and look and eyeball these things and have the knowledge and the ability to make those decisions. And he has to be able to manage a budget and live with it and can find money through grants and be able to do this work in-house, not farming it out to other people. We give away, I'm going to say it was roughly $160,000 just for good purposes of a printing company, and that's not in their product. That was in just the hours that they sat here. That's crazy. You don't have another water company in town that we can go to. You don't need to spend money on things like that. And that's what we want for a manager, that can guarantee that our bill isn't going to go up. It isn't going to get out of hand. Right now, 30% of my water bill on average goes to paying for water. The other 70% goes for paying for the sins of past management. And that's the way I look at it. And I hope that you guys take that and run with it and find somebody that can do what we need to have done. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Rini, did you want to say something?
Hello, board.
Rini.
I have a lot of confidence in you. But this one question, it says, salary. What is a fair salary? That is an open-ended question. And so my first thought was, fair to who? So is it going to be fair to the agency, or is it going to be fair to the person that's being hired? That's just a question. But the bigger question is, what is affordable? We have limited resources, and so we have to work within a budget. And for the last period of time, the agency has not worked within a budget. It's expanded itself, it's borrowed money, it's in debt. So I think that's something, all the attributes that you listed for what we want in a manager sound almost like a good husband. But the idea being is that the ideal may not happen because we're all human beings, but I think we're on the right track. But we have to ask you as a board to look at that fair salary and affordability and to really take that to heart. And I think some of the answers that you've already given are excellent. You know, you're on the right track. So I would just, keep that in mind. Who's the salary going to be fair to, and is it affordable? Thank you.
Thank you, Rini.
Thanks, Rini. Anybody else would like to speak? I always forget your name, and you're in the back row. I know you'd like to speak.
Wally.
Wally Schmidt.
Wally Smith. Wally, I know you'd probably like to say something. Actually, I hadn't planned to. But I've been sitting here listening to your expectations and thinking to myself, how do we find somebody with this unique mix of expectations, and how do we find somebody who is intelligent enough to pull us out of the situation we're in, but not smart enough to know what he's worth and is dumb enough to sell himself to us for a price we're willing to pay. And I think that's going to be a difficult situation. I'm thinking that there is a time and a place for shopping at Walmart or Costco. This may not be it.
Okay. Thank you, Wally.
Thanks, Wally.
Does the board still want to make some more comments?
Susan,
She wants to speak too. I'm sorry. Didn't see. Can you tell us your name first?
Susan Nightingale. I've been here before.
I know you have. but
Okay.
I'm not very good with names.
I think when we're looking at what's fair, as Rini was saying, that's a little bit of a nebulous term. What we need to do is make it a position, not just a salary, but a position that is attractive to the candidate. Because if it's based on him fully for money, then he's probably not the right person for this job. As Dan spoke about, he moved here. My husband and I moved here 40 years ago and opened a business. We did not move here to make money. We could have gone to a city, worked for an architectural firm, and had a lot more assets. We came here for the lifestyle that it afforded. Also, when you look at a salary, you cannot just look at similar sized districts. You may find a district like this somewhere out in San Diego that's our size, but the cost of a small home, I'm not saying tiny home, I'm saying small, for an executive type person, 2,000 square feet might be 1.5. And you're going to come in Paradise and you're going to find it for a lot less. So you cannot base it just on money, but they have to understand that they're getting more financial value from living in a place that has an extensively lower cost of living. That statewide, employees in Paradise make 27% less than the statewide average for jobs. And if they don't know that and they're not willing to accept that, then I don't think they're after what our community offers, which is a lot. The person needs to be a fiscal conservative, as they were talking about. We're not a district that is floating. We don't have excess. We don't have a surplus like we did 10 years ago. We need somebody who's a conservative. And from everything that I've heard, Kevin is doing a relatively good job at doing it, and he's managing both jobs. So that tells me that there may be other positions in this water district where you can take 3 positions and cut them down to 2. And that's a hard thing to do in a district. But if we're in a position where there are going to be several people retiring, then that may be less painful than it would be otherwise. And Ann talked about having an engineer. Well, maybe that's not necessary. Maybe it would be an MBA or an engineer or 5+ years experience as a water district manager. But having somebody that has shown the tenacity to complete that engineering degree or to complete that MBA or to work in a district which they didn't like to get their 5 years experience, that is another person that is dedicated to their job. And people in this community were upset. I was part of the recall. You probably all recognize me as part of the recall. And people were, it wasn't only, they weren't looking at this board member or that board member. They were looking at how the district was being run. And they didn't like that, and they didn't like that the board were all just yes people to the management. And so from the community's viewpoint, there were management positions, so the management problems. And so the community does look at who's in the management. They're very aware of that. Some people didn't have any idea who the members on the board were. They just said, they tell the management yes to everything, so we don't like the management, so we want them out. So, I mean, people they are aware of the management, and so when you're considering who to hire, you do need to take into consideration how the people in the community might feel about them and what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Sue?
I should ask, is there anybody else? I guess there's nobody else left.
Yeah, I just want to say that, obviously salary is not everything, but there's no way around it. It's an important part of the position that you guys are offering, and we'll take it very seriously and come back with a concrete recommendation that you guys will be able to deliberate over, and we'll find something that's fitting in the end.
Well, I think when you say salary is not important,
I'm not saying that it's not important.
It's less important to somebody who's already here. It's probably going to be more important to somebody moving here from outside and having to reestablish themselves. And so I think that Wally was right when he said we're going to have a hard time if we're looking outside of our current staff. We're going to have a hard time enticing somebody to come here when there's no PERS for them that they're used to, and the salary is going to be low. They're going to really want to have to be here really bad to come. And and obviously I'm pretty pro Kevin, but I think we already got our manager sitting there. We just have to go through this process to prove it, and so we will. But there's a guy that he's already doing 2 jobs, doing them admirably. He already loves the community. He has time in the chair. He knows everything that's going on, So that's your guy. But
we will be depending, I think, on sources beyond our control. And I think people know what I'm saying.
I have a question since Kevin isn't here. I don't know if Mickey can answer this or not, or Georgiana. When we looked at the last recruitment, I guess it was in 2004, and I don't know if this brochure was used to recruit George or not, but I see the very back, it says we used CPS Executive Search. Do either one of you remember doing that?
CPS did the brochure.
Oh, did the brochure? Because it says could turn your resumes into CPS Executive Search. So did we use an outside agency once before? Okay, because I was under the impression this was the first time we ever used an outside agency. Okay, thank you. I didn't know that till I got a copy of this.
Any additional comments, questions, anything at all?
How does the rest of the board, I don't know how you all feel about, but what about getting some of the management team in on a workshop as well? Because that was part of the, I didn't realize we were only going to be the only ones here today.
Absolutely. We can continue to talk to other stakeholders you guys feel are relevant.
I think we've kind of, and that would be another chance for more of the public to, but what do you think about that?
We can throw in a community, like strictly for the community as well, presentation. However you guys would like to do it.
What is your next step? Do you come up with kind of a suggested draft proposal for us?
So right
and
now
then we could at that time, maybe, especially if you can email it to all of us and we can get it to the public and so on, then if we can kind of review that and have one more and then have more staff and management here at the time. And, yeah, is that kind of what's happening
I'm
next?
Thinking the next step would be to do the same thing with management.
Absolutely. So
I don't know if you could maybe teleconference it if you don't want to do another trip, or because do we have the capability to teleconference or podcast or do something like that?
I'm sure we could figure it out.
Figure it out that the management can get in on, and I don't know if we as a board need to be here.
Well, they have those web meetings you can.
Right. So you could, if we don't need board and
Yeah,
you
because
just
I'd like
want to make it
management to be able
management.
to speak freely and
Right. Kevin
just like
could
we
probably coordinate it with you guys for, one of
So
our.
I've been primarily going through Kevin.
But he's going to be a candidate.
That seems to be, he's going to be a candidate. Well, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but he's been my means of communication with all of you. So either we can switch up and Georg and I can.
Why?
Should we go through Georgiana?
Were you thinking about coming up here at the next presentation or not?
Yeah.
I
no,
wasn't
if
saying
that's
you
the
had
best way
to.
go,
I
we can
just
make it work.
assumed that might be what would happening, but no?
I prefer to do it face-to-face for sure. I mean, it's quite a trek for us up here, but it's not a problem.
So you want to do one
then
more
we
then?
could just have management here with us.
Yeah.
So you were not, under the impression that Kevin would be a candidate for this?
It had never been communicated to me up until this point.
Well, I think he probably didn't want to step out, but there's been a lot of discussion about that, and I think since he's taken over, he's done a tremendous job
Sure.
filling his shoes and the previous district managers. And
We have one board member that's been promoting him heavily.
I think we should have saved the money, but we didn't. Now, I understand it. Everybody wants to be above board and transparent, and we want to see if it is Kevin,
So
the best guy for the job. But you definitely need to consider him because he's sitting in that chair now, and he's working for that salary right now, and he's tickled pink to be here, and he loves the organization. So you need to definitely consider him as a serious contender for that position.
a couple things. So I didn't even answer the process, the step that we're currently on. So the step we're currently on is we are producing the ideal candidate profile.
Right.
So with that information, we will then establish a brochure, other collateral, mainly just a brochure that we'll publish online for advertising reasons.
Right.
So we can develop a brochure simultaneous to the process of speaking with all the different stakeholders, or we can wait until we have all the information, so for me with management and then the community, then using that information to build a brochure, and of course we'll send it along to the board and other relevant stakeholders so that they can collaborate on it. we'll have a final product, and then we'll advertise that online. I think it's very uncommon to have champions within the organization that are good to interview. So someone like Kevin, it's very typical that there's a viable candidate within the organization. But it never hurts to go through the process and see who else is out there.
No, that's good, but I mean, myself, if I've got a qualified individual to fill a position in my company, I'm going to hire from within. Because when you bring in somebody from the outside, not only do they have to learn your culture, they have to learn the job that they're going to be doing. That individual's going to have to teach them that job because he's the only one that knows. And you're going to, what does it say to your employees when you bring in somebody else when you got a qualified candidate already sitting there? That tells them they don't have job security. So,
Bob, you want to speak next? I know you had your hand up.
Questions directed to you. After what you've done here today, the questions, do you have a good feeling for what we're looking for, or do you need further information and still fishing for a little more to go on?
I personally feel that we have a very solid foundation to start from. We have a good pool of information. Doesn't hurt to gather more perspectives from other groups within the larger community. I think the three main bodies of stakeholders are always the board, the intermanagement, like the hired people, the non-elected people, and then the community. So those are always the three main groups that we would like to speak to.
I just didn't want to feel you missed something here and give you full hire.
And honestly, if you guys were like, we have to get this person hired yesterday, we could probably do it again.
We are not in a panic.
Yeah.
I want to clarify one thing. The board voted 3-2 and turned down Kevin, as Cliff wanted him to be the next permanent manager. And so that happened. Also, after we were through with that, it was explained to Kevin he's more than welcome to apply for the job.
We expect him to.
So that's part of the politics that you're looking at up here. Cliff is very much, when he's for something, he really speaks hard for it. So I just wanted to let you know the quiet ones. So, thank you.
Sure.
So the next step, I think, is to do a workshop with the interim management?
Sure.
Okay, that's what I would think. And then, do we want to change the
I
contact?
was just wondering, do we want another point of
Well,
contact?
we can talk to management to see if they have additional comments, because they'll be able to access the comments that you're giving today. So
I would like to have a workshop
The
with
contact
these people here.
The contact would have
You
to be
want
close
the
with
workshop.
the board.
Yeah, it's in the
right?
contract that we signed for $25,000. I'd like to have.
okay.
yeah, I think you're going to
The
have
contact
to
would
go
have
to
to
the
be
board.
close to the board because they're going to have to be distributing materials and things throughout the process. So, someone who already works with you guys obviously would.
Well, I was thinking about the contact person. Should it be Georgiana? Because you had in your contract, you had that you'd be forwarding things to the district secretary.
Sure.
Makes sense.
That makes sense to me.
Makes sense to me.
She's confidential employee and all that.
All right.
Or Christy is the head of HR, but
I
Kevin's her boss.
I would nominate Ann for that position. She's very articulate. She's very good about documenting things, and
I don't have
she's
enough to
pretty impartial. I think.
Yeah, but don't you think Georgiana would be impartial?
I think it should
Sure.
be with
Well-
Georgiana.
Well, Georgiana is very close to Kevin, and if Kevin ends up being our permanent district manager, I would like it to be known that he got the job above board, just like everybody else.
Oh, well, that would be. Yeah.
I don't question anything Georgiana does. She has to live on two worlds with her work for the board and also
Yeah,
work
she has
for
to
the
serve all five of us and be,
Works for us. So.
yeah, and be
I
impartial.
don't question her either in any way, shape, or form. I'm just wondering about for the sake of transparency, if it's more. You have the experience in this. What would your recommendation be?
It's all a process. Why would it make any difference?
One thing I'll throw out is that I would probably prefer Georgiana only because I'm not sure. Sometimes we have, your general counsel might advise that we can't necessarily directly communicate to all board members at the same time, right?
You cannot.
That's
You're
correct.
violating Brown Act.
Brown Act,
That's
yeah.
correct.
Yeah, so.
Get it to her, she gets it to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through Georgiana.
I guess we're all in agreement, as Georgiana.
Okay with that, Georgiana?
Yeah, you're the context.
Does she have a choice?
Do you guys have anything more for us this afternoon?
So we'll work with Georgiana to schedule the next workshop. Great.
Yeah, that'd be great. We all appreciate Georgiana. She does a good job and communicates readily with us. Sends us emails and all that.
And did anyone furnish you with the current job description and what the last brochure looked like?
I've seen the last job description, but not the previous brochure, so it would actually be good to see that.
I asked her to email it to everybody before.
Yeah,
the
she
meeting.
did. I got it.
she
too.
did?
Yeah, yeah.
I just didn't look at my email, I guess.
Yeah, I got it.
I got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Some of the facts have changed, but it's,
It's still-
starting point.
Yeah.
If there's anything more to come before the board this afternoon? Does anybody else have anything they'd like to speak to on this?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming and listening to us and taking all those notes. It'll be interesting reading those.
Probably would like to see Georgiana have a good feeling hers are better than mine, but.
Good. So
Did you give us a time frame now? Did we talk about
the next step is the management thing, and then there is one in the back here.
Oh, okay.
There is a breakdown, yeah,
Yeah.
the back page.
Oh, okay.
Once we start advertising, I would say probably you're looking at 3 to 4 months to actually get somebody in the door, right? Is that about?
Yeah.
Well,
Just to make an offer.
And I was thinking for this next
something we'll have to
workshop.
work on.
The next workshop,
it's
how soon?
all delineated there.
Yeah, it's in here on the second page. So I move we adjourn?
Yes, that's, okay.
Second?
We're done.
Thank you.
Thank all the